What's the Church of Scientology so afraid of?
This is SPTV. AA Run is back with some more SPTV. Guys, some people are asking me, hey, is the AA Run intro gone? Are you done with it? Are we ever going to see it again? You're using the SPTV intro. The AA Run intro will never be gone. I will never be done with it. I will never get rid of it. But in my mind, I'm sort of covering this trial. I'm at the Danny Masterson trial for SPTV. And the story of how that even came to be is, I submitted a request to the LA Superior Court Media Office requesting media credentials. And I gave them a link to my Growing Up in Scientology channel, and I gave them a link to some of the videos I'd done about the trial the first time, and even some stuff after the trial. And when I got a call, they said, okay, so what name do you want to put on the badge? And I go, oh, just my name's Aaron Smith-Levin. And like, no, it's got to be the name of the entity. And I go, oh, okay, well, Growing Up in Scientology. And they go, that's what you want on the badge? And I go, no, I want my name on the badge. But if you have to put something on the badge, I guess it's Growing Up in Scientology. And they're like, okay. And I go, you know what? Put SPTV. And she goes, well, what does SP mean? And then I explained it. Well, suppressive person and Scientology, when they kick you out, they call you a suppressive person. And, I'm a declared suppressive person. I explained the whole thing, and I thought she was going to be like, oh, that's cool. She was like, let's go with the other one. So unfortunately, my press badge doesn't say SPTV. It says Growing Up in Scientology. But I am the SPTV correspondent. So guys, let me just give you an update. We're on a really long lunch break right now, a longer than normal lunch break, because Judge Almeida actually has another trial that involves like gang murders and everything like that. And that jury had been in deliberations for quite some time when day one of the Danny Masterson proceedings started yesterday. And so she told us early on, if this jury comes back, we're going to have to take a time out and deal with the verdict of the jury. And that's what's happening. So right now in Judge Almeida's courtroom, she's dealing with the jury verdict from another very serious trial. So anyway, that gave me enough time to come back to the hotel and do a midday update. So here's the update, guys. A full morning of testimony from Jane Doe 3. Oh, man, testimony on subjects like this, you can imagine it's quite difficult. It's quite difficult. I can't imagine being in her shoes and having to go through this a second time, having to go through all this testimony and reliving all of this, rehashing all this a second time. One of the most remarkable things from this morning was how quickly the testimony went pretty deep into the Scientology weeds. I didn't really understand what Deputy DA Mueller was doing at first when he started directing her along this line of questioning, and it became very, very apparent. Very early on when Jane Doe 3 got into Scientology, which she got in because Danny Masterson reportedly basically gave her an ultimatum: in order to continue to be in a relationship with me, you actually have to join Scientology. But Jane Doe 3 was raised Christian. And one of her earliest courses in Scientology was about suppression, suppressive persons, PTSs, potential trouble sources. In Scientology, a PTS is someone who's connected to an SP. And Jane Doe 3 was told that her parents were SPs and that she had to, good roads, good weather, handle them or disconnect from them. And this was allowed as evidence. This testimony was permitted. Testimony is evidence, but this line of questioning and this type of testimony was permitted specifically because it speaks to the frame of mind of the Jane Does, in this case, Jane Doe 3. Now, there was some objections coming from the defense. The nature of those objections were basically, essentially, she's not allowed to testify as to what is or is not true in Scientology. And the judge had to make clear several times, she's not testifying as to what is or is not true in Scientology in an absolute sense. She's testifying as what she believed to be true, and it speaks to her state of mind. It actually doesn't even matter if she's wrong. It matters what she thinks and believes. She's not testifying about Scientology per se. She's testifying about her own state of mind. And in the process of doing that, went very deep into what it means to be PTS, what she was told would happen to her as a person, as a being, if she continued to be PTS. She talked about roller coastering. She talked about not flourishing and prospering. She talked about not being able to maintain gains that she got in Scientology, not being stable as a being. Some really good stuff. Again, there's been a lot of objections, both sustained and overruled during the first 3 hours of testimony this morning. Quite a lot, but all very, not very, nothing's gotten heated. The judge, the attorneys have been on their best behaviors. The judge hasn't had to bring down the hammer. So yes, there was a lot of Scientology testimony. Just again, just what I said. The other thing that was said today that I had heard before, but I hadn't heard it said in testimony is, well, actually, there was. Anyway, I'm losing my train of thought. But there was an incident. This was testified to last time. There was an incident where Jane Doe 3 was with Danny Masterson. They had gone up to meet with Jennifer Esposito and Jennifer's boyfriend, former NHL hockey star and also model Chris Chupp. And this was at a little get together. And as they were leaving the hotel, Danny, I guess, was drunk or something, and he was yelling at Jennifer while Jennifer was with her hockey star boyfriend. Hey, Jen, show them your, and I'll just say tatas. Anyway, Danny was apparently verbally being abusive towards Jennifer Esposito for a couple minutes before Chris Chupp turned around and beat the living tar out of Danny Masterson in front of these two paparazzi people, drug him out into the middle of Sunset and just whooped his butt. And when I actually did a video about this about 5 months ago. And one of the questions that came up is, how is there never a tabloid article about Danny Masterson getting his ass beat in the middle of Sunset Boulevard in front of the paparazzi? Okay, so Jane Doe 3 actually said in her testimony today how that was buried. And the president's office at the Celebrity Center was actually personally involved in getting those story killed. Contacted those paparazzi. I'm giving some information right here that's a little above and beyond what was actually testified to today. But so immediately after he got his ass whooped, he went back home. His little butt boy Luke Watson jumped on the phone with his mommy. Watson, what is Luke Watson is one of the guys who's one of Danny Masterson's hangers on, and his mom was the president of the Celebrity Center. So Luke Watson gets on the phone with his mom, tells him all about what happened, and then the president's office staff at the Celebrity Center is the one who handled all this dirty laundry. I mean, it's interesting because you don't oftentimes get an opportunity to hear a story of Scientology using its connections and leverage to kill celebrity stories in the press. And that's exactly what occurred with Danny Masterson. One of the other things that was testified to today, which I have to say, this was so much more impactful to me personally, hearing it directly from Jane Doe 3's mouth than it was in the past when I have read about this testimony. There's just something about it coming right from her that made it click. When I've heard this testimony before, I was like, there's something that doesn't sound quite right about it. I hear it right from her mouth and I go, I know exactly what she's talking about. And it has to do with the fact that when Jane Doe 3 went to the ethics officer at the Celebrity Center and reported that Danny had, and she used the R word, I'm just not saying it right now because I don't want YouTube to have any excuses to ding this video. She said, Danny assaulted me. And she used the R word, rhymes with grape. So I feel so silly having to talk like this. The ethics officer told her specifically, and this is Miranda Scoggins, you cannot be R word by someone you're in a relationship with. That was actually told to Jane Doe 3. You cannot be R worded by someone you're in a relationship with. And again, this was testimony that's being permitted because it speaks. It's part of it. It's part of the fact that these women, Jane Doe 3 in this particular case, was a Scientologist, believed in Scientology, trusted and believed the Scientology authorities, that even though Jane Doe 3 believed she had been R-worded by Danny, she had enough trust in Miranda to go, actually, if you're in a relationship with someone, it actually can't be that. And this is something I'm going to do some conversations with some other, maybe Mark and Mike later on when they're available to discuss this, of how much of those kind of instructions that ethics officers give to people, how much of those instructions come right out of L. Ron Hubbard policy and tech, how much of those instructions come from their own personal ignorance in these subjects, and how much of those instructions come from directives that have been handed down by David Miscavige and Religious Technology Center and the Office of Special Affairs. Because fundamentally, there isn't anything written about this subject in Scientology about whether you can be R-worded by someone you're in a relationship with. It's not something that's ever discussed in Scientology. I suspect that specific directives have come down from RTC, David Miscavige, and from OSA about this subject. But anyway, we'll dig into that more. Chatting with Mike and Mark, probably not tonight, probably tomorrow or the day after. Let's see. There was at the end, just before we actually took a break, Judge Almeida read from a ruling that she made months ago. And I don't have a copy of this ruling. I've asked for a copy. I'm going to get it. Someone's going to send it to me. And it has to do with the admissibility of testimony about Scientology and why it is being permitted in this case. And I tried to keep notes about what she was saying. And I know I didn't do it great justice, but I'm going to just read to you the notes that I have. She said, the testimony about Scientology in this case, no matter what kind of testimony it is, no matter whether it's true, false, inflammatory, or otherwise, does not in any way infringe on Danny Masterson's First Amendment right to practice Scientology. She said, Danny Masterson does not have some religious. Danny Masterson is not a religion. Danny Masterson, as a Scientologist, does not have a constitutional right not to have someone say bad things about Scientology in his presence or in a court of law. It is Scientology who's protected as a religion, not Danny, whose his religious rights are not being infringed upon by people saying bad things about Scientology. I'm paraphrasing, but this was the essence of what she was saying. Admission of evidence about Scientology does not violate Danny's rights or the legal doctrine or a legal ecclesiastical doctrine. Any testimony or evidence about Scientology is admissible because it provides context for the victim's delayed reporting of crimes. It provides context to understand the relationship between the victims and Danny, and the victims and the organization, and the victim's acceptance of certain behaviors at the time. And to determine Danny, and she said the admission of Scientology evidence is relevant to determine whether Danny Masterson committed these crimes. I was like, damn, I've got to get my hands on the exact language of the ruling that she made, because I want to be able to do just a dedicated video about it. It was very, very strong. Let me see. To explain the victim's delay in reporting the crimes, including reports made, evidence including reports made by the victims to people within the organization, and even to explain how the victims would either responded or didn't respond to other people in the friend group based on those friends' relationship to the organization. Okay, to explain their beliefs about the reporting, also that Scientologists, she said, to explain that Scientologists hold a disdain for secular law enforcement. Secular or regular? I always forget whether secular or non-secular means non-religious. But anyway, you guys get the idea. To explain fear of reporting and to explain fear of retaliation, to explain the victim's behavior before, during, and after the charged incidents, to explain the witnesses. I'm repeating myself here a little bit, but her ruling repeated itself a little bit. And to explain the discrepancy between statements that were made prior to a certain date. Oh, I think it was statements that were made by Jane Doe 1 when she was still in Scientology that differ from statements she made after she was out of Scientology and in freedom to actually speak her mind. And then the last thing, and I'm going to say this, the last thing the judge said was actually to admonish Deputy DA Mueller regarding his method of direct examination. And I thought this was interesting. And if you read Tony Ortega's transcript, everyone's going to see this anyway. So I'm not like giving anything away, but I just thought it was interesting that the judge is placing a high priority on actually moving this trial along as fast as possible, or at least not causing unnecessary delays. And it's interesting. Deputy DA Mueller will ask a question. The witness will answer the question. DA Mueller, he has a habit of repeating the answer before asking the next question. And it's funny because it's an innocent thing. The judge even said to him, look, I understand that this is your method. This is your style. You're probably not even aware that you're doing it. She actually said that to him. You're probably not even aware, but I need you to stop. I know. So many of these interactions just remind me of a mother and their two kids, which is not intended to be dismissive in any way, but it is an interesting dynamic of, you have these highly trained and experienced professionals, and yet sometimes the interaction is just reminiscent of a mother and two kids. And because also D.A. Mueller's significantly older than the judge. It was just a funny interaction. And she's like, listen, you have a way of asking the same question 5 times, but it means the same thing, and you've got to stop. So she's like, you have just please, like, ask one question and then ask the next question. And you could tell it was just really bugging the judge all morning. I mean, it was only 2.5, 3 hours of testimony, but she's like, I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. We've got to move this along. Okay. So that's pretty much it. Let's see. Yeah. All of the substance of the testimony is not new, because again, this is the second trial. So, and I know not everyone, was paying attention to the first trial, but, I've heard this story many times. So as I look through these notes, none of it seems new, because technically speaking, it's not new information. It's very difficult. It's clearly very difficult for Jane Doe 3 to have to testify about all these things. I think she's doing a great job. I think she's doing as good of a job as anyone could do under the difficult circumstances. And I will say this, Danny and his crew are at least being on their best behavior. I'm not seeing laughing. I'm not seeing snickering. I'm not seeing unnecessary distracting, commotion, noise, fidgeting. I'm not hearing scoffs. For the most part, to be honest, Danny kind of looks like shit. I'm not going to lie. He does not, he's not looking like, I had heard that in the last trial, he was very good with his body language. He seemed very confident, calm, cool, and collected. If even arrogant, not so much in this trial. Danny looks like he's been having a bad few months. He does. That's what he looks like, in my opinion. Oh, by the way, I did a video last night and a video this morning exposing one of Danny Masterson's predator friends who's been showing up to court. Go figure. Didn't show up to court today. Good on you, Graham. Hopefully I don't see you after lunch. But if I do, I might ask you whether you saw my video this morning, and I'll be interested to hear your answer. Okay, guys, I've been ignoring the chat, but now that I am done reading my notes, let me jump over to the chat. Try not to ignore any of that, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay. Oh, I see something there. I hate dead air. I get very self-conscious scrolling through the comments with a bunch of dead air. Okay, going rogue. I will be coming to the courthouse tomorrow to support Jane Doe's. Fantastic. I mean, Jane Doe 3 is testifying now. I think there's a pretty good chance her testimony might carry over to tomorrow morning. If Jane Doe 3 finishes her testimony today, I believe the next witness is going to be expert witness Dr. Ziv. I believe. So if you come tomorrow, well, I mean, you'll know after I post the update today whether Jane Doe 3 will be testifying tomorrow morning, but it's possible there won't be a Jane Doe on the stand tomorrow morning. We'll have to wait and see. There was someone in the courtroom today who was there because she watches this channel, and I think she'll be there after lunch again as well. I can hear housekeeping outside the door, so I'm going to hurry it along here. All right, guys, I'm just doing a little more scrolling. Okay, good. We're all done. No, Leah was not there today. I think Leah might be there tomorrow, but I don't want to speak for her. I'm not sure, but we already knew she wasn't going to be there today. All right, everybody. That is the afternoon update. That is what I got. Stay tuned. Much more to come. I'll do an update when court gets out. I'll also, after that, do a chat with my attorney friend, Zach Morgan, about some of the goings on that has been going on. So stay tuned, guys. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button, please. Really helps me out. And I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe